Comrade officers, Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the leadership of the armed forces and state authorities are ready for the extended meeting of the Collegium. Chief of the General Staff, Army General Gerasimov, good day. Comrade officers, Comrade officers. Respected Andrei Removich, respected comrades. Today, as part of the extended Collegium of the Ministry of Defense, we will discuss the results of our work over the past period. We will define the priority tasks for the development of the armed forces and for strengthening the country's defense capabilities. I will note that the past year has been an important stage in resolving the tasks of the special military operation. The Russian army has seized and is firmly holding the strategic initiative along the entire front line. Our troops are confidently advancing and grinding down the enemy, his groupings and reserves. This includes the so-called elite units and formations, trained in Western military centers, equipped with modern foreign technology and weaponry. This year, over 300 settlements have already been liberated, including large cities that the enemy turned into fortified hubs, saturated with long-term fortifications. They could not stand. They proved powerless against the courage and military skill of our fighters. The captured positions, the bridgeheads created in recent months, and of course the unique tactical and operational experience gained in battle of breaking through the enemy's deep defenses allow us to increase the pace of our offensive in strategically important directions. We are proud of the feats of our soldiers and officers fighting on the front line. Of everyone who bravely and loyally defends Russia and the security of our citizens, I want to sincerely acknowledge and express my gratitude to our dedicated North Korean comrades in arms and allies. By the decision of the chairman of the State Affairs of the DPRK, Comrade Kim Jong-un, they were sent to participate in the liberation of the Kursk region. And shoulder to shoulder with Russian fighters, they valiantly and bravely fought the enemy. They took part in the large-scale and extremely complex work of demining the liberated Kursk land. It is our duty to always remember all of our fallen comrades in arms, to support their families, their children, their parents. The state will do everything necessary. I ask that we honor the memory of those who died for the motherland with a moment of silence. Thank you. Esteemed members of the board, we know that the Kiev regime is backed by the capabilities of the member states of the world's largest military political bloc, NATO. Large-scale military aid is flowing continuously. Advisors, instructors, and mercenaries are being sent. Intelligence is being shared. In such difficult conditions, our troops demonstrate high combat readiness and skill. The capabilities of the Russian army are constantly evolving. The work to strengthen the armed forces has been ongoing in recent years, continuously. I am referring to improving their combat composition, making qualitative improvements to the military command and control system, and to operational and combat training. And of course, increasing the efficiency of the defense industry, which has rapidly reorganized many of its production and technological processes. It is manufacturing sought-after products in ever-increasing volumes. Thanks to the efficient work of the defense industrial complex, the Army and Navy are being equipped with modern weapons and technology in a timely manner. The ground forces are currently receiving advanced missile and artillery systems with high-precision strike capabilities, loitering munitions, various different types of drones, and state-of-the-art robotics. The aerospace forces are receiving modified missiles and aerial bombs with guided glide and correction modules, capable of operating effectively in a complex jamming environment. Well, many of you here know how much the effectiveness of this work has increased recently. At times it exceeds 80%. I want to thank those who are involved in this. This is real, tangible assistance. This year, the Navy's fleet was replenished with new submarines, including the Kaniaz Požarsky strategic missile carrier, as well as 19 surface ships and vessels. Successful tests have been completed of the Burevestnik strategic cruise missile with unlimited range and the Poseidon unmanned underwater vehicle. Thanks to the use of a nuclear power unit, these systems will long remain unique and one of a kind, ensuring strategic parity, security, and Russia's global position for decades to come. We will continue to work on these systems. We will continue to refine, perfect, and improve them, but they already exist. By the end of the year, the Oreshnik medium-range missile system with a hypersonic missile will also be put on combat duty. Last November, its first combat use was conducted. The high level of training of our units and formations, their ability to solve the most complex tasks, is also confirmed during regular exercises, including those with our foreign allies and partners, to whom we are passing on the experience gained during the special military operation. For instance, I'll note the good results shown at the Zapad 2025 Joint Strategic Exercise. All tasks for the protection and security of the Union State from potential external aggression were successfully completed. Today, we see that the geopolitical situation in the world remains tense, and in a number of regions, it is becoming simply critical. NATO countries are actively building up and modernizing their offensive forces, creating and deploying new types of weapons, including in outer space. Meanwhile, in Europe, people are being fed fears about an inevitable clash with Russia, being told they must prepare for a major war. Various figures who supposedly held or still hold responsible positions seem to have simply forgotten their responsibility. They are guided by some short-term personal or group political interests and not by the interests of their own people. And they are increasingly raising the level of hysteria. I have said it many times. It is a lie, nonsense, just nonsense about some imaginary Russian threat to European countries. But this is being done quite deliberately. The truth is that Russia has always, in the most difficult circumstances, to the very end, as they say, as long as there was even the slightest chance, sought to find diplomatic solutions to contradictions and conflicts. And the responsibility for not using these chances lies entirely with those who came to believe they could speak to us in the language of force. Even today, we advocate for building mutually beneficial and equal cooperation with the United States and with European states for the formation of a unified security system throughout the entire Eurasian region. We welcome the progress that has emerged in the dialogue with the new American administration. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about the current leadership of most European countries. At the same time, we are aware that in any international situation, the key guarantor of Russia's sovereignty and independence, its security and future, and strategic parity remains our armed forces. And as I have already said, we need to systematically work on strengthening them. What I want to particularly note here, what tasks to set in the sphere of military development, including taking into account the dynamics of the situation on the line of contact. First, the goals of the special military operation will, of course, be achieved. We would prefer to do this and eliminate the root causes of the conflict through diplomacy. But if the opposing side and their foreign patrons refuse to have a substantive conversation, Russia will achieve the liberation of its historical lands by military means. The task of creating and expanding a security buffer zone will also be consistently addressed. Second, the work on modernizing the armed forces must be continued at a high pace and with high quality. First of all, within the framework of the new state armament program for 2027 to 2036, which is currently being developed. At the same time, as I have said many times, the experience of the special military operation, new trends in combat tactics, and in rapidly developing military technologies must be taken into account as much as possible. Among the key areas of the state program are the air and missile defense system, electronic warfare control systems, and unmanned systems in all environments. And of course, our priority is the improvement of strategic nuclear forces. As before, they will play a key role in deterring an aggressor and maintaining the balance of power in the world. Today in Russia is the day of the strategic missile forces. Taking this opportunity, I want to congratulate the veterans, personnel, and civilian staff of the strategic missile forces on their professional holiday. I wish you success and all the best. Third, the Russian army must continue to remain at the forefront of technological progress. This means that robotics, information technologies, and new materials must be introduced into the troops in an accelerated manner, and the use of artificial intelligence technologies in control systems and in autonomous combat systems must be expanded. Fourth, it is important to equip the orbital constellation with new generation spacecraft. As a result, the troops must receive high-speed and secure communication channels. The quality of their intelligence support and precise navigation data will improve. Furthermore, in May of this year, the strategy for the development of the Navy until 2050 was approved, defining its future outlook. The clear and timely implementation of the strategy's provisions will allow us to modernize the Navy and increase the effectiveness of its combat missions in all theaters of military operations. And finally, we must continue to actively develop military and military technical cooperation with foreign countries, with our allies and partners, and to improve the system of collective security and the Union state. Overall, work in this area is a significant factor in strengthening regional and international security. Dear comrades, one of the state's priorities is to expand social guarantees for the participants of the special military operation and their families for all of our service members. In the past year, the Ministry of Defense, together with the Defenders of the Fatherland State Fund, has done a great deal to improve the quality of medical care, aid for wounded soldiers, and to resolve issues of their rehabilitation and employment. This includes ensuring timely payments and implementing other, including additional social support measures for the families, children, and parents of deceased service members. I draw your attention to the fact that there is still more work to be done here. Right now, in preparing for the direct line, it's clear that many questions are coming in on these topics. But we will, of course, return to this with the leadership of the Ministry of Defense. I would especially like to note the heroic work of military doctors and medical personnel, who at times do the impossible to save our fighters and, after treatment, return them to service. A unique, truly unique experience has been gained in providing medical and psychological assistance to service members with wounds, injuries, and illnesses related to combat operations. This experience must be integrated not only into the work of military medical institutions, but also into civilian healthcare, and this must be enshrined at the legislative level. Of course, work must also continue on indexing the monetary allowance for service members. The pace of providing them with permanent and service housing must not slow down. Every defender of the motherland must know for certain that the state will provide him and his loved ones with all the necessary social support. In conclusion, I want to once again thank the soldiers and officers who are now on the front line, all participants of the special military operation for their heroism and self-sacrifice. I wish the leadership, all personnel, and the civilian staff of the Ministry of Defense new achievements in their service to the motherland and our people. I am confident that you will continue to reliably stand guard over the sovereignty and security of Russia. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. The floor is now yours, Andrei Romovich. Please, Andrei Romovich.
Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, dear comrades, last year at a meeting of the Collegium, 10 priority areas for the Ministry of Defense's activities were identified. They remain relevant for the near future. Today, we will review their implementation and set the tasks for 2026. The first priority area is ensuring the achievement of the goals of the special military operation. as defined by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. Throughout the year, the armed forces have confidently maintained the strategic initiative, conducting active offensive operations in almost all directions. As Vladimir Vladimirovich noted, over the year, more than 300 settlements and over 6,000 square kilometers of territory have been liberated. This is a third higher than last year's figures. Moreover, the pace of advance of the Vostok Center and Zapad troop groupings has increased by 1.5 to 2 times compared to 2024. Behind these figures lies a qualitative result. Kursk Oblast has been liberated. Important defense hubs of the Ukrainian forces in Donbass and Zaporizhzhia have been eliminated. Ultimately, what was obvious from the very beginning has been confirmed. The collapse of the Ukrainian armed forces' defense is inevitable. Finally, even Kiev's Western curators clearly understand this. I will now focus on the results of the troop grouping's actions. The Seva troop grouping. The large border town of Vovchansk has been liberated, and the creation of a security zone in Kharkiv and Sumy oblasts is ongoing. As a result, the threat of an enemy invasion into Belgorod, Kursk, and Bryansk oblasts has been reduced. This has made it possible to begin demining the territory. Over 150,000 hectares have already been cleared, and about 3 million explosive objects have been destroyed. The restoration of social and economic infrastructure in the border areas has begun. This creates the conditions for establishing a peaceful life for citizens. The Zapad troop grouping has occupied the strategically important city of Kupiansk, which the enemy is unsuccessfully trying to reclaim. Supply routes for the Ukrainian armed forces units passed through it. This will allow us to expand the security zones in Kharkiv Oblast and reduce the threat of enemy shelling of the northern districts of the LPR. Currently, the encircled grouping on the left bank of the Oskol River, east of Kupiansk, is being eliminated. The process of taking control of the city of Krasny Lyman is ongoing. Its liberation opens the way to blockading Sloviansk, a crucial logistics center for the Ukrainian armed forces. The southern troop grouping during offensive operations has occupied powerful enemy fortified areas, Chasiv Yar, Kurakov, and Siversk. Currently, battles are being fought for the city of Kostiantinivka. It is the key to the last stronghold of the Kiev regime in Donbass, the Druzhkivka-Kramatorsk-Sloviansk agglomeration. Capturing this line will allow for the complete liberation of the Donetsk People's Republic in a short time. The center troop grouping has taken control of the city of Krasnoarmysk, which was a symbol of resistance for both the Ukrainian army and its Western curators. The destruction of Ukrainian units in Dimitrov, the last pocket of defense for the Ukrainian armed forces in the Krasnoarmysk agglomeration, is ongoing. The enemy in the city is reliably blockaded. The liberation of Krasnoarmysk and Dimitrov will be the biggest defeat for the Ukrainian army in Donbass in recent times. The Vostok troop grouping is advancing at a high pace deep into the enemy's defenses in the Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk oblasts. Since November 1st of this year alone, the grouping has taken control of over 400 square kilometers of territory and liberated 24 settlements. The liberation of the city of Huliepol is ongoing. This is an important fortified area of the Ukrainian armed forces and a transport hub, the capture of which will create the conditions for the liberation of all of Zaporizhzhia. The Dnieper troop grouping is advancing in the Orikiv direction. It has captured the settlement of Malatokmachka and is fighting on the approaches to the city of Orikiv. Taking control of this settlement will create favorable conditions for the further development of the offensive in the northwest of Zaporizhzhia Oblast. In addition, the grouping's troops are securely holding the Dnipro Island zone, repelling ongoing attempts by enemy landing parties to land on the Tendra and Kinburn Spits. Overall, as a result of the successful actions of the joint grouping of forces, the combat potential of the Ukrainian armed forces has been reduced by a third this year. First, they have lost over 103,000 various types of weapons and military equipment, including about 5,500 of Western production. This is almost twice as high as the figures for 2024. At the same time, Ukraine's security forces have lost almost 500,000 service members. As a result, Kiev has lost the ability to replenish its forces through the forced mobilization of its citizens. Secondly, the capabilities of the Ukrainian military-industrial complex for mass production of military products have been reduced by almost half. Incidentally, the effectiveness of Russian precision strikes is about 60%, which is an order of magnitude higher than the effectiveness of Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory. Thirdly, more than 70% of thermal power plants and more than 37% of hydroelectric power plants, which supply energy to the military industry and the armed forces of Ukraine, have been disabled. Ukraine's energy capacity has decreased by more than half. This has also had a direct impact on Ukraine's ability to resist. I thank the command and personnel of the joint grouping of forces for their professional actions, courage, fortitude, and heroism in carrying out their combat missions. A key component of our success on the battlefield is the steady manning of the armed forces. This year's recruitment plan has been exceeded. Almost 410,000 citizens have voluntarily joined military service on a contract basis. Almost 2/3 of them are young people under 40 years of age. More than 1/3 have a higher or specialized secondary education. I would also like to thank the command of the military districts, the plenipotentiary representatives of the President of the Russian Federation, and the heads of the regions for their diligent work in recruiting for the armed forces. The steady supply of armaments and military equipment plays a crucial role in the successful execution of combat missions. The volume of supplies to the troops of main types of armaments, military equipment, and ammunition has increased by 1/3 this year compared to 2024. Thanks to this, despite the high-intensity combat operations, the provision of the joint grouping of forces has not only not decreased, but has even increased by 6 percentage